The emergency exits is one through the door you entered, which is on to my left. There's one exit to the right, and there's one at the back of the stairs where you see that green little man sign on top. The toilets are in the foyer, the one you entered from. While you're at the reception, which is in a different floor, you can go down to level 2, use the elevators, and the bathrooms are going to be to the right when you exit the elevators. At this point, I would like you to I request you to please put your phones on silent. Feel free to take pictures, but it'd be good if you switch your flashes off in your phones. This event is live streamed, so we ask you to be mindful when you're speaking or moving around in the room. In gathering here today, we acknowledge the Ghana people, who are the traditional custodians of this land. We pay our respects to the elders, past and present, and extend that respect to all other Aboriginal people present. I'd like to welcome you to the opening ceremony of the Southern Hemisphere Space Studies Program for 2023. My name is Dr. Ruchi Sinha, and I'm the Director, MBA, and Dean of Postgraduate Programs at UniSA. I'm also an Associate Professor in the Business School here and the UniSA Co-Director for the Southern Hemisphere Space Studies Program. I'd like to especially welcome today Honorable Susan Close, MP, Deputy Premier and Minister for Defence and Space Industries. She's here today representing the Premier of South Australia, the Honourable Peter Malinakis MP, and the Southern Australian Government to open this program this afternoon. With here today is Auntie Elaine of the Ghana People, Michael Davis, the Chair of the Andy Thomas Space Foundation, our own Professor Marnie Hughes-Warrenton, the Deputy Vice-Chancellor Research and Enterprise at UniSA, Mr. James Lewis, and Mr. Goktu Karla Orlu, better known as G2 to all of us. Both James and G2 represent the International Space University, and they are this year's ISU's Program Co-Director for the Southern Hemisphere Space Studies Program. With us is Mr. Ross Morris. He's the UniSA Co-Director along with me for the program and the partnership. And the last one, a warm welcome to Associate Professor A.D. James, who's been instrumental in the running of this program for the past 11 years and has provided valuable support to the team as we've transitioned this partnership from a different academic unit to UniSA Business. So thank you, A.D., for being here. More than 300 students have graduated from the SHSSP. This year, we have 38 confirmed participants. So it's now my pleasure to introduce you to the class of 2023. In the tradition of this program, the participants will enter behind the flag of their country. As our participants enter, we will hear a recording of the Adelaide Youth Orchestra performing Jupiter, the Bringer of Joy by Gustav Holst. To begin this procession, we welcome participants from our host country of Australia. Next, we welcome China. Next, we welcome Germany. Next, we welcome India. Next, we welcome Italy. Next, we welcome Japan. We welcome Kenya. We welcome Malaysia. We welcome Mauritius. We welcome Mexico. We welcome Portugal. We welcome South Korea. We welcome the United States of America. join me once again in welcoming the Southern Hemisphere Space Studies Program class of 2023. I would now like to welcome Auntie Elaine Magalhaes to the stage to perform the Welcome to Country. Auntie Elaine is a respected elder within her community and works tirelessly in supporting teachers in developing curriculum which is inclusive of Aboriginal perspectives. So it is just fitting that she is here to welcome all of you to what is a truly intercultural program. Auntie Elaine.
Nā mani, Nainari Munato, Marwachanga Gana Miuna, Na Wangani Mani Na Budni Gana Yatana, Nature Yungana Dalia, Nature Yukana Dalia. Hello, hope you're all good. My name is Munato, fourth born, aka Annie Elaine. On behalf of the Kaurna people, I welcome you to Kaurna country. My brothers, my sisters, let's walk together in harmony. I'm just going to give you a quick story since we're in a multicultural room. I am Kaurna first and foremost. I'm also Narungga, which is from York Peninsula. I found out recently I've got Nudgeri, which is up north of South Australia. My mother's great-great-grandfather was Chinese, in fact from northern China. Apparently came out for the gold rush, decided it was too far to walk, and stayed in Wallaroo and married a traditional Kaurna woman. My father was Scottish descent, hence the freckles. My husband is Greek. So just here is the United Nations, I think. But I'm not unique. As Aboriginal people, we have got lots of blood from across lots of countries in us. In the West, a lot of people have got Chinese and Japanese. Up the top end of Australia, a lot of Malaysian. On the East Coast, a lot of English, surprisingly. Yeah, we're a multicultural people. In fact, one of the most diverse people in the country, in the world. Kaurna country stretches from Crystal Brook in the north, down along the coast, out into the ocean, down to Cape Jervis, and then comes back up along the Adelaide Hills, Mount Lofty Ranges. So when we talk about Kaurna country, it's not Adelaide Plains, even though they say Kaurna country, Adelaide Plains, it's a huge area. So welcome to my country, walk softly. The ancestors know you're here and they're watching you. Thank you.
Thank you, Auntie Elaine. I would now like to welcome the Honourable Susan Close MP, Deputy Premier and Minister for Defence and Space Industries, to deliver an address and officially open the programme.
Thank you so much for that introduction. Thank you, Auntie Elaine, for choosing to welcome us to country. I am proud to have been born on Kaurna land, to work on Kaurna land and to celebrate Aboriginal culture every day. And seeing these three flags together, I think a few years ago there would only have been one brought down when talking about Australia, and now we would never do that. Always honour the First Peoples, the heart of Australia. I am so moved and proud to be part of this launch today, with so many different nations choosing to be here and also choosing to be interested in space. We're a physically large state and in population terms a very small speck of humanity in South Australia. And we have to choose carefully where we put our hopes and where we put our investments. We've chosen space to be one of those. And we've done that for a number of reasons. One is that space answers many of the questions and challenges that we collectively face as a world. It plays an important role in how we manage and understand what's happening on this earth, and no more important than in managing and addressing climate change. If we don't get into space and use our best human expertise to extract the information we can about our planet from space, we are far less likely to manage the challenge of climate change. It is a weighty responsibility that those of you in this business are taking on. We also have chosen space because it is one of the exemplar industries that is about using our brains, our know-how, to develop our economy. We in Australia have long rested on the laurels of having natural resources that we can dig up or grow and export. That is not the future of our prosperity. Our future is in high intellect, highly complex industry, and space is a beautiful example of that. We also are interested in space because kids love it. And if we want kids to study their maths, take an interest in science, continue to apply themselves both at school and then in university and other further education, then having space as something they can truly be part of is a big part of explaining to them why that's worth doing. And so that, again, space is something that unites us and drives us forward as a state. But I think to come back to where I started with the question of being the international people that are represented by Auntie Elaine so beautifully, space is at a moment where it could go in many directions. We can use this increasing technology and power we have, this increasing capacity to collect data and to watch what's happening, to further divide our world. We can also use it to solve our collective problems. And the best way to make the latter the more likely path is by bringing people from different cultures and nations together. And the range that we see here today tells me that the University of South Australia, the International Space University, and these students are intent on doing just that. So I wish you so well in this wonderful year of 2023, the year where everything gets a bit better. That's how I start every year. One year it's going to be right. No, it is this wonderful year of 2023. I hope you have a magnificent experience here. I hope you learn a lot. Know that you are adding so much value and you're presenting such a gift to South Australia by being here. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister, and thank you for those words and for being here to open the program for us. I'm now pleased to welcome a long-time SHSSP supporter, Mr. Michael Davis. Michael Davis is the chair of the Andy Thomas Foundation. He's been part of the inaugural master's class at the International Space University, and for a large part has been responsible for the creation and championing of this program in Adelaide. Michael.
Thank you for that kind introduction. Distinguished guests, Auntie Eileen, Dr. Close, and other distinguished guests, it's my great honour to speak to you today at this opening ceremony of the Southern Hemisphere Space Studies Program. I also join with the Deputy Premier in acknowledging that we are meeting on Kaurna land, and we have the great honour of occupying and joining with the Kaurna Nation in the enjoyment of this land. As a proud alumnus of the International Space University and as a proud South Australian, it gives me great pleasure to welcome the participants, faculty and supporters of the 13th Southern Hemisphere Space Studies Program to my home city. As the chair of the Andy Thomas Space Foundation, I'm also proud that we are able to provide financial support for two participants in this very important space education initiative. As you've already heard, my involvement in ISU goes back to 1995, when I enrolled in the first ever Master of Space Studies program at the brand new ISU Central Campus in Strasbourg, France. To say that the decision to spend a year as a full-time student in the middle of my professional career changed my life is an understatement. Australia's involvement in ISU goes back before my time to 1992, when a consortium of Australian universities, including the University of South Australia, formed the ISU affiliate campus. This led to an active program of cooperation between ISU and the Australian space community, which has grown and become stronger to this day. Initially, Australian participation was mainly by sending participants to the annual ISU Summer Space Program, and after 1995 to the Master of Space Studies program. The key person driving this collaboration in Australia was the late Professor Mike Miller, who sadly died in 2022 and whose life and career is remembered with great gratitude by many of us here today. The growth of Australian involvement in ISU can be seen from the alumni statistics. In 2022, the number of Australian alumni who graduated from all of ISU's programs was ranked 6th in the world, exceeded only by the US, China, Canada, France and the UK. On a per capita population basis, this puts us at the top of the list. Why has Australia been such a strong supporter of ISU? A number of reasons can be postulated. In the first place, we have a proud tradition of international space cooperation, dating back to the development of the Woomera rocket range in South Australia in the 1950s and 60s, followed by the unique relationship forged between the Australian government and the US government during the Mercury, Gemini and Apollo programs in the 1960s and 1970s. We understand the importance of working collaboratively in space. In addition, Australian academic institutions have long enjoyed a reputation in space-related teaching and research. When we conceived the idea of bidding to host the 10-week summer session program in Adelaide in 2004, it was not hard to obtain the necessary local university support, in this case from a consortium of the 3 South Australian universities who combined their resources to host the program during the busy months of July and August. Due to the fact that we hosted over 200 international and interstate visitors for up to 10 weeks, the 2004 program was recognised as a major contributor to our local tourist economy. The success of the 2004 SSP eventually led to the idea of a new program in the Southern Hemisphere summer, while things were relatively quiet at ISU campus in the Northern Hemisphere winter. I pay special tribute to the former ISU president, Michael Simpson, for his vision and for the trust he placed in the local organisers of the new program, which was launched in 2011. With strong support from personnel at the Mawson Lakes campus, we conceived and agreed upon a true partnership between ISU and UniSA, in which each institution would contribute its own resources and personnel in kind, with ISU taking the lead on the curriculum of the program and UniSA taking the lead on facilities and logistics. And it was agreed that the financial proceeds would be divided equally at the end of each program. This arrangement was not intended to be immutable, but the worldwide pandemic, which had such a dramatic impact on international education programs, had an effect. The SHSSP has been held every year since 2011, and speaking for myself, and I think many of my Australian colleagues, the impact of ISU on the Australian space community is clear. Our successful ventures in international space education with ISU led to a brave decision by the small not-for-profit Space Industry Association to bid for the International Astronautical Congress in Adelaide in 2017, and we look forward to welcoming the IAC back to Australia in Sydney in 2025. As many of you are aware, the IAC in 2017 was the catalyst for the federal government's decision to establish the Australian Space Agency in 2018, and the rest, as they say, is history. Once again, to the class of 2023, I say welcome. We know from the feedback received from previous participants that the experience of this program will stay with you for a very long time, and in many cases will change your life. Enjoy the next 5 weeks.
Thank you, Michael, for providing that history, and it puts a lot of things into context and how this program can truly shape your career and your life. I'd now like to welcome Professor Marnie Hughes-Warrington. She's the Deputy Vice Chancellor for Research and Enterprise at UniSA.
Thank you, Ruchi. I also want to acknowledge my thanks to Auntie Elaine. I was raised in Palawa country and was taught there were no Aboriginal people in Tasmania, and we spend our lifetime relearning what we learned as young people. And I want to make it really clear that every time you hear a welcome to country, you hear something different. The person is actually bringing to you the opportunity to learn. So I want to thank you for being such a good teacher and showing us something new here to learn. And it's for all of us to take that gift. It's such a generous one. And I want to acknowledge that we haven't always been very generous in return. So thank you for your generosity in teaching us tonight. I want to thank the Deputy Premier. I want to thank Michael. I want to thank you all here. While it's been fun to be on Zoom for the last 3 years, and I noted that in Zoom we were all the same height. 80 James, just calling out how tall you are. It is fantastic to finally welcome you back in person, because while we may talk about spaces out there and up there, nothing actually beats meeting in person, which is wonderful. Greetings to our colleagues from ISU, to all our sponsors, thank you so much. So I'm DVC R&E. What that is just basically Vice President R&D. I look after discovery, partnerships, translation, commercialisation. Now, we have over 6,500 partners, and you can imagine around 2,000 researchers in the institution, and the apple is falling on everyone's head. Now, I often say to people, the apple is falling on a lot of heads, and it's like they're strapped in a rocket together. So if you just imagine that happening, you've got a picture of what my portfolio is like and how exciting it is to work in the space that I do. It's a huge privilege. One of the real qualities and attractions of South Australia is exactly that space story. It's got a very deep history, but it continues to evolve really, really rapidly, and you are part of that story. So we have this wonderful program, this 12th instantiation of the program, which is fantastic. We have the Space Agency, we have Mission Control, we have the launch pads. We're proud to be the parent of the SmartSat Cooperative Research Centre, which is doing such great work around cybersecurity and satellites, for instance, in working on AI in space, and remembering the legacy of Mike Miller in optical and communications through one of those chairs as well, which is great. We're in trailblazer space, so we're thinking about how to make CubeSats go faster, further, cheaper, quicker. How do we think about that? But also in environmentally sustainable ways. How do we think about space in those ways? And we are the home of the South Australian space startups. So let me just give you a couple little factoids about them. We have a program called Venture Catalyst Space, and you just imagine being me and saying, oh, look, we've got space startups in our institution. I love it, because space startups, they make you go like this. And when they stretch you, everybody stretches up. So I want to acknowledge, for instance, in our first cohort, Ping Services continue to make wind turbine monitoring devices, and they've had a 100% increase in staff in 2022. They've increased their products from 1 to 4, and they've shipped over 1,000 units to 23 countries. So that little startup is now on fire. ResearchSat, same cohort, provides scientific research in space, just launched their first CubeSat into low Earth orbit last month, carrying pharmaceutical and biological experiments. Travelling aboard the Suborbital Express 3, the CubeSat achieved microgravity for 6 minutes, performing real-time monitoring and data collection before it came back down to Earth. And finally, space surveillance company Digitara from the 2021 program launched their second satellite in early January, which was a rideshare on SpaceX's Transporter 6 mission. And the satellite was launched in Florida and will operate as a space weather testbed to improve situational space awareness for precision purposes. And it'll deploy 2 more missions into space situational awareness in 2023. It's all happening here. It's happening at the ISU, but it's all happening here. It's a really exciting time to be here, and it's a really exciting place, and it's deliberate. So the Deputy Premier's right. It took an act of faith by the community to invest in space, and I'm incredibly proud that we've done this. But the bit that makes it really vibrant is you. Because you are, of course, part of networks. You're already working in space capacities, many of you, or you're hoping to do so. You represent that generation of leadership that continues to inspire and stretch all of us. Your backgrounds are all very varied. I'm pleased to say again, 50% of our participants are female, but I know in past experiences, the disciplinary experiences you bring with you, your international experiences, that breadth is extraordinarily welcome. So whether you come from the humanities or medicine or engineering, STEM, regardless of your background, we want to hear from you. We're delighted that UniSA Business is now partnering with UniSA STEM in the delivery of this, because space industry is as much about the technical side of things as to how to make it work and how to accelerate it, and we're proud to have those two in collaboration. We're thrilled to be working with ISU again, so welcome, gentlemen. See you in person is really fantastic. And I'm pleased to hear that this year we're focused on Artemis, ensuring technological and political infrastructure for the lunar future and creating a space ecosystem. And like last year, I'm really looking forward to hearing about what projects people work on. It's really loved to come back at the end of the program and to hear from people and to see what they've been working on together. Without a doubt, it will be inspiring. It will stretch us. We hope in the time that you're here, if you don't know South Australia well, that you will take the opportunity to get to know this state, its history and its future in space. I want to formally say thank you for coming. Thank you to everybody, and a very, very warm welcome to UniSA. We're 31 years old and we're going off like a rocket. So thank you, congratulations, and thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Marnie. I'd now like to welcome Mr. James Lewis. He's the Program Co-Director from ISU.
Thank you, Ruchi. I appreciate that. It's tough to follow such wonderful speakers, but I think they stole my notes because they've got some things I was going to say too. So we'll muddle through. But first, I want to say it's an honor and a privilege and a pleasure to be here. And thanks to Auntie Elaine for the welcome and offer that I acknowledge that this place that we are on is the traditional lands of the Indigenous people of the Adeline Plains, and want to offer our utmost respect for their elders, past and present and future, and we respect their spiritual relationship with this land. So thank you. So, what hadn't been mentioned, and you may or may not know, is that I'm on loan from NASA Johnson Space Center. It's been a big privilege for me. And so that's in Houston, Texas. And while I was not born in Texas, there's kind of a popular expression or phrase that you see when you drive around. And it kind of goes like this. For those of you like me who have moved in from other places, the phrase is, I may not have been born in Texas, but I got here as fast as I could. And so I think that sentiment kind of applies, I think, a little bit for ISU and the space studies programs, right? And so I expect that like me, there's probably many here that didn't get in the program, they haven't been a participant, they're not an alumni. So I'm excited because I get to personally experience it. I'm kind of on the wrong side of the fence, but I got here as fast as I could. That's all I can say, right? So the last few months for me have been a whirlwind. And based on what I've learned so far, I'm looking forward, to really high expectations and finally experiencing this program in person. So even though it's still relatively new to me, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that the next 5 weeks will be very, very busy for you guys. However, if we've done our job right, hopefully the time we'll be spent will be educational, challenging, as well as fun. As we move forward from today, it is important to note that the directors and the staff also want to make sure that this is a great experience, a balanced experience, which certainly includes time to spend in Adelaide and in the country and to experience the richness and the diversity that is here. I can offer little doubt that after about 5 weeks, we are done, that many of us, including myself, will want to come back, whether it's for work or business or vacation or whatever those reasons are. So while there are a large percentage of us that do not live here, I believe we will come back as fast as we can. As ISU representative, I need to share probably a few things. I think it was mentioned, the collaboration that was already mentioned that started back at SSP23 was held here on the city campus in the years since. The Southern Hemisphere collaboration has influenced, as was mentioned, many, many, many aspects of both regional and global space. And we know that there are alums from this region everywhere, which, again, was a great acknowledgement earlier. So many alumni now work or lead in the Australian space, including CSIRO, the Australian Space Agency, the Cooperative Research Center of Smart Satellites, Australian Air Force, and many other space startups. Also, they serve on the ISU board and their faculty, as well as staff. So when it comes to describing, I think, the Southern Hemisphere SSP group alumni as a group, I'm going to quote another sort of famous space person, and it can be easily said, I think, about the alumni group, the force is quite strong in this one. Now, if you don't know what that quote's from, go find Alex. I'm sure she can tell you exactly who that is. So, after studying a bit of the history of SSP in Adelaide, it seems appropriate to acknowledge many of the people that are maybe here and some of the people that are in the past. I heard names like Simon Beecham, and I've added that list, that name's A.D. James, because I've seen him, I've heard him, every place I've been, he's been incredible. And I call that sort of people that help kick open the doors, so to speak, but there's been obviously dozens, if not hundreds of people that keep the doors open. So we want to thank everybody for that opportunity to be here. So. While there's always risk that you forget people when you say thanks directly to people, and because you'll leave somebody out, right? I do want to thank Ruchi and Ross and Adi and Alex and Jan Marie and David and Ellie for being down in the trenches and working with us for the last couple of weeks. And it's been, by the way, it's been longer than the last couple of weeks. So it has been eye-opening for me to see and learn about the growth of the Australian space sector and the excitement and what I call the anticipation of the opportunities that exist going forward from stuff like this. So, and despite the challenges of the last couple of years for the entire world, we've talked about COVID a little bit, we have all persevered. Even though we've had to move things online, like we mentioned, for a few years, ISU and SSP and their programs continue to see a large number of students and participants applying in the space programs, and really continuing that pattern of growth and diversity, both in geographical as well as gender distribution. So we're excited about stuff like that. If this is evidence of anything to me, it's that the future of the global space activities is here to stay. I believe, as I said earlier yesterday, we've turned the corner, and I don't think there's any going back. We're in space for perpetuity now. Really, the only thing that I think that holds any of us back is just the decision not to participate. Which leads me to participants. So we have a participant class of 38, which is probably a little lower than we probably all would have liked, but again, we're dealing with COVID, the impacts of COVID. But these 38 participants were selected from 15 different countries, as you saw in the opening ceremony, once again offering us a great mixture of engineers, scientists, businessmen, management, policy and law, humanities, and information technology. 50% come with at least a master's degree, and 53% are women. So you can imagine the excitement of what all this diversity means for the program. Tomorrow morning, we kick off with our core lecture series, during which participants will begin to hear dozens of lectures from renowned experts from around the world, not only just Australia, but other countries. These lectures will be complemented with hands-on interactive workshops and along with a few special activities along the way, which occur primarily in kind of the first 3 weeks of the 5-week period. This year, we are again fortunate to have an astronaut participating in the program. I'm happy and excited to welcome later this week Rex Walheim, a retired NASA astronaut. He will lecture as well as have a panel which will be open to the public. Continuing the program this year are the perennial favorites, the rocket and balloon launches. I myself cannot wait to see some of that stuff. And then later, as the capstone team projects. So during the first 3 weeks, time is dedicated to the team projects. but they become the focus really the last 2 weeks of the program. So team projects are selected and designed to create an environment where participants are challenged to figure out how to organize themselves and work as a group towards accomplishing a goal of researching, studying, writing, and presenting on a space-related topic. Did I mention this is done as a group? This year, there are 2 topics. One is built around the Artemis program, where the project is designed to examine the future of human activities on the moon within the Artemis program. The other takes a much broader look at the space ecosystems to identify the barriers and challenges, potential solutions, and opportunities for smaller countries and smaller industries entering the space marketplace, and how other private and government stakeholders can contribute, guide, and support them in that entry. Participants have already been sorted, and we provided each team a balanced mixture of education, profession, experience, and diversity, which we think is what's best to deliver on a team project. This year's team projects are co-chaired by what I believe is an ISU first, is a married couple, Emmeline Pat Dahlstrom and Eric Dahlstrom, who are no strangers to either ISU or this region of the world. I look forward to getting to see them in action as they lead their respective teams towards completion of their projects, which will result in a publishable, worthy format of material. This will be done online with the help of Carol Carnett, who we were supposed to have heard today, but she couldn't dial in, who is a longtime ISU legend. Simply completing the project, however, does not mean they're done. Each team also has to develop and deliver a final presentation at the end of the 5th week. As such, we invite everyone to come and listen in to our participants on Friday, February 17th, as they present their work and their findings to the public as well as to our experts on our evaluation board. I would be remiss, though, if I didn't mention one other important thing worth highlighting, is that alongside of this year's SSP, Friday and Saturday, February 3rd and 4th, will also be held the 2023 Adelaide Conference on Commercial Space. Many thanks to Christian, and I'm sure others that were involved in its planning and their sponsors, as an opportunity for the Australian ISU alumni community alongside the ISU program. That also will be open, some of it will be open to the public. Before I wrap all this up, lastly, and certainly not least, I do need to acknowledge our own staff for their tireless efforts to the program. Both of those who are here in person, like my co-director, Dr. Claudiu, Lisa, Frank, and Ahmad, as well as those back at Central Campus who provide support, like Tanya, Joelle, Nike, Geraldine, Sylvia, Nassim, and Pascal. And again, all the experts that are going to be supporting us along the way. So in conclusion, I want to offer that I am truly humbled and excited to be on board Spaceship SHSSP23, and I express my gratitude for being allowed to participate in this very, very special activity, and state that, again, for all the newcomers like me, while I may have never been part of SSP before, I got here as fast as I could. Thank you, everyone, and as the program director, it is my pleasure, along with my co-director, Dr. I hereby declare for SHSSP23, we are go for launch.
If it's all right with the speakers, it would be really nice to have a quick photo in front of the flags here, so if we can please invite you. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all the program staff, quite a few names that James mentioned here today, our participants, and our many friends and supporters of the program. This program would not be possible without the support of many groups and organizations. In particular, I'd like to acknowledge the scholarships that were provided by our sponsors, which have helped and added to a component of our education, and we're fortunate to have a large number of generous benefactors. I'd like to thank those who you see here in the presentation. We have the scholarship providers, the South Australian Space Industry Centre, Sir Ross and Sir Keith Smith Fund, the Andy Thomas Space Foundation, the Shriver Space Scholars, and the Italian Space Agency. Amongst our faculty sponsors, we have CNS, Meta Visionaries, Blue Origin, and NASA. Amongst our sponsored placements, we have the Australian Space Agency, CSIRO, European Space Agency, the QL Space, the Indian Space Research Organization, the Asia Pacific Satellite Communications Council, and MODIS. We also have our event and program sponsors, Sir Ross and Sir Keith Smith Fund, the ATF Press, and the 10th to the 9+ Foundation. I would like to acknowledge the dedicated and hardworking staff who have worked behind the scenes for far more than a couple of months. I think we started working on this program somewhere in July last year to ensure that this program runs smoothly, including the small team of staff based here at UniSA, which include Alex Ryan, Jan Marie, Ellie, led by Ross and I, and the ISU staff that are based in Strasbourg, France. We acknowledge the support of the Hawke Centre and the Kerry Packer Civic Gallery, which have made themselves available for our event. I can now hereby declare the Southern Hemisphere Space Studies program is open for 2023. Thank you, everyone. This concludes the formalities of today, and I'd like you all to please join us for refreshments at the Kerry Packer Civic Gallery, located at the top of the stairs, so you can go from there to level 3. And I'll request the participants to just stay back for a nice group photo, and then we'll all head back there together. Thank you.